It is Sunday, January 27th, 2019, and welcome to Flicker Effect. This is episode 280. I'm David Lotz. Joining me this episode is Bobby Jackson.
Hey, what's up?
Yasha Wilson.
Hey, everybody.
And Michelle Hillard.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
Hello, guys. Real quick for everyone listening, just a reminder again that we have a regular release schedule for our podcast and for Spoiler Effect. New episodes of Spoiler Effect will always release on Sunday nights at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. And Flicker Effect also releases on Mondays at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. So always look out for that. Flicker Effect podcast is available in Apple iTunes, in Google Play Music, the iHeartRadio app, or you can stream or download the episodes directly from flickereffect.com. So, yeah, check it out. And thanks for listening ahead of time. With that, let's get right into it. Normally, we like to chat about what we've watched lately. So, hey, Yasha, what have you been watching this week?
Well, I started Tag yesterday.
Oh, I saw it was on HBO Go.
Yeah, it's on HBO. That's why I saw it, and I was like, "Oh, I wanted to watch this." So I started it. I have not finished it, so there's not much to report there yet. It's funny. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of it. I actually remember this story when it was a Yahoo story. Like somebody broke the news on Yahoo, and they were talking about how these guys have been playing this game of tag for the better part of 30 years, and it gets really extreme. And it's basically what the movie is based on. So I'm just looking forward to finishing it. Like, I mean, it's basically these guys just got together and they've been doing this for the past, 30 years. But it's interesting. So, I mean, they've obviously sillied it up a little bit for Hollywood and whatnot, but I'm still enjoying it. So I'm looking forward to finishing it.
Nice.
I enjoyed it when it came out. I saw it in the theater and I thought it was pretty funny. It was it wasn't as on the same level for me as Game Night was, but it definitely held my attention, and I thought it was cleverly done. And the way they staged some of the action of the tags is pretty cool as well. But yeah, I think you'll enjoy it by the time you get to the end as well.
Yeah, they just barely introduced Jeremy Renner's character, and he's a lot of fun. And so I know what you mean when it comes to those tag moments. So it's good. Like, like I said, I'm enjoying it so far. And the other thing that I have started watching, sorry, my list is really small this week, is I started watching the Ted Bundy tapes on Netflix. This is so interesting, but I don't know what our fascination is with the macabre at times, but this shit is wow. I mean, for lack of a better way of saying this, it's just fucked up, man. Like, it's just really messed up. This guy was really on a whole nother level of just crazy. And it's interesting to see this didn't happen that long ago. Like, that's the crazy part. It's like, there were interviews with the reporters that, broke the case and got him talking. And they were interviewing some of the first responders and some of the police detectives that were working the case when he was around. It's just like, this shit was not that long ago. And, these people are still very much alive. Like, it's twisted. It's interesting. Like, I don't know if you like the way that it's edited out too is really kind of dark. Almost reminds me of the beginning of Dexter, if you've ever watched that. And it's a really interesting. And he's, I kind of got the interest because I wanted to see how he is. And then with Zac Efron playing him in a movie coming out soon, I want to have that compare and contrast. And I'm kind of interested to see how Zac Efron does, because I think he's a pretty fine actor. So I'm looking forward to it.
Nice. So that's Conversations with a Killer, the Ted Bundy tapes, right? Over on Netflix?
Yes.
Cool. Michelle, what have you watched this week?
I've not watched a lot this week. I did see Cold War. I saw it with you. We did a spoiler effect on that. And then I did watch Isle of Dogs finally.
Well, first I was Cold War.
Oh, okay. Wait, I guess we'll just jump into that. All right.
Jump into Cold War.
All right, sure. All right. I really enjoyed Cold War a lot, actually. I liked it enough that it makes me go, man, I wish I had seen this before the top 10 show, because it would have been a heavy competitor, I think.
Yeah.
No, I think I love the simplicity of the storyline, even though it's during a very rough, I don't know. It's set during the Cold War. It's set during the 50s and 60s in Poland and in Berlin and in Paris, and it's the height of communism, and it's a rough one to see as far as the background of what's happening within the story itself. But the storyline it's nice, a simple love story in a way, just with a lot of tumultuous situations based on where they are and what situation they're in with communism. But the acting is really good. The cinematography is really good. I have no complaints about this film. I liked it a lot.
Yeah. I saw it with you, and I completely agree. And for those not familiar with the movie, as you said, it's a love story, but real quick, I'll read the IMDb description, which is very brief. In the 1950s, a music director falls in love with a singer and tries to persuade her to flee communist Poland for France. And it's a simple story, but it's shot incredibly well. But it's brief too. I think excluding credits, opening and closing credits, it clocks in at 77 minutes. So it's a short one. Yeah,
it's short and to the point.
But it doesn't feel too short. It feels too short in that I'm like, oh wow, I'm enjoying this, and oh, that's too bad, it's over. But at the same time, I feel like a perfect length for this movie, and didn't need to be any longer.
The story comes full circle. Like, you come to the point that you're like, yep, that's all the story needs right there.
Right.
Done. But no, it's really good. I recommend it. For everybody.
Sounds like you're saying, there's no fat on that bone. It's just like they get right to the point, because 77 minutes. I really honestly don't remember the last movie I saw that was that short.
I haven't seen an animated film that's that short in years.
Oh, right.
Other than an actual animated short, I have not seen an animated film that is that length of time in a long time. So but at the same time, like, it's nice that it really just kind of jumps into the situation really quickly. The pacing is really good, though. It was nice. You guys should definitely check out the spoiler effect for it.
Yeah, and I know we're going to talk about the Academy Awards a little later in this episode, but it was nominated for 3 Oscars: Best Foreign Language Film, Best Director, and Best Cinematography.
Oh, yeah, like I said, the cinematography is beautiful, and I think, and I know we're going to talk about this, but I think in the cinematography category, this cinematographer, it's going to be between him, and it's going to be between Anthony Cuarón, and not Anthony. What's his name?
Are you talking about Roma? Alfonso Cuarón.
Alfonso Cuarón. It's going to be between the two of them. I think it's going to be a showdown between Cold War and Roma.
Right.
If I were to guess, I think that's what it's between.
Right. Cool. So you mentioned also you saw Isle of Dogs?
Yeah, I finally watched Isle of Dogs. I've been wanting to watch that Wes Anderson film for a while. Yeah, and I finally got to. I really liked it. It's not a kids movie, but it's not a kids movie. But there's some stuff that's like, oh wow, that's a little rough. But I like Wes Anderson's humor, and you get just enough of that in here without it getting just too dark, I think. But it's really good. I like the storyline. I thought it unfolds really well, and I don't know. I enjoyed it. The actors, they got to do the voices for the dogs, I think, are great. And it's a great little story about like a boy who loves his dog and goes to great lengths to go get him, and the dogs that rally behind him. It's pretty cool. I liked it a lot.
Nice.
I'm a big fan. So yeah.
Very nice.
Yep.
So yeah, I'll say real quick. Like I mentioned, I saw Cold War with you. I haven't seen any other movies this week. Other than really Cold War, I've just kind of been in I've started my Game of Thrones, my marathon toward April. So I'm 9 episodes into the first season.
I thought maybe you had determined that you weren't going to do it because of a late start or something.
At one point I thought that, because I think I had done the math earlier in December and was like, oh, if I watch like 4 episodes a week, I could start now. And since because of the holidays, that didn't happen. And part of me was like, oh man, it's not going to work. And then I think, you and I saw the same article, Bobby. There was one article out there that had done the math, like right as soon as they announced officially the date in April, which I don't have right in front of me, by the way, but I think it was CNET had put an article out going, hey, so if you start on February 6th and watch 1 episode a day, you'll be good. And then they also gave the dates if you watch 2 episodes a day or 3 episodes a day. So yeah, when I saw that, I'm like, well, if I go ahead and start now, and there'll be days where I'll watch 2 episodes, which there have been already, and then there'll be days where I won't watch an episode. It'll balance out. It'll work.
Balance out.
So yeah, I'm 9 episodes into the first season, and I will say, it's funny going into it because I've watched I feel like the first and second seasons probably the most because I've done this kind of thing in the past. Kind of binging the show again before the new season starts. Part of me was like, do I need to rewatch the first 2 seasons? Do I even want to? I feel like I've seen them a lot, and then starting to watch that first season now, I'm glad I'm watching it because it reminds me, I think what I love the most about this show, which is all of these just great dialogue scenes between really great characters, which as much as I also love these more recent seasons, I do kind of miss that part of Game of Thrones. Like that first season, especially, and even I feel like a couple of seasons past that wasn't about big battles and big moments other than, big terrible moments like you get at the end of some of these seasons. But, it's just about really great dialogue and great character development. And yeah, I'm enjoying watching the first season. I'm glad I'm watching it.
Yeah, I feel like those first few seasons are such a mental head game between the characters and each other, and even between just the show and the audience. It's such a head game the whole time. Like you're wondering who's got the leg up on who. Like you're constantly just watching it, and everybody's talking to each other, and you never quite know who to believe or who to trust, and it's just such a mind mess. Like it's just, I don't know. But it's kind of nice watching that. Like you kind of see that development go down throughout. And I feel like it's gotten a lot less of that as the years have gone on. But it's obviously, it's very evident in those first few years. You're just kind of watching everything slowly take its time and uncoil and unravel into what is now this huge, epic, like crazy nightmare.
And then it's crazy to think, like, I don't know why, but watching this first season again, I'm like, man, this was 8 years ago. This doesn't feel like it's been that long. Obviously, it should be obvious we're going into our 8th season, but still, I don't know why. I was like, man, I don't know why it doesn't feel like it's been 8 years since we started this run. I don't know. Anyway.
Right. It's funny to watch like the kids grow up, like seeing them so young. It's like, oh God, Whew, they were babies.
Yeah.
They were super little.
All the Stark children
all
are
the Stark
like,
children.
Wow. Like,
whew. Even Jon Snow, he's just this fresh little baby face, soft white, pale baby face little guy. And you're just like, oh, Jon Snow,
right.
You poor thing. You're going to go through, you're going to age so quickly.
So yeah, that's, oh, go ahead, Bobby.
I was just going to ask, do you think after now that you will have watched all the seasons and then you'll come upon that final season, and once that's over, do you think you'll ever go back and jump into the books, whether you read them or listen to them through audio?
I don't know anymore. In the past, because I've read most of the first book. There was one point where I was like, I'm going to read the books. And this was back before the show had caught up with him and surpassed him. And I was like, oh man, I want to read the books now. I want to kind of get ahead of the show. And so I had started the first book and I had read most of it. And I don't know why I got distracted by something and never finished it. And And then obviously that's never happened, but I had really enjoyed reading it, and there was probably a time that I probably would have answered, yeah, I think I will go and read these books and finish it. But now I don't know, because since the show has passed him and the show is basically doing its own thing, even though I know the producers consulted with R.R. Martin about what generally his plan was going to be, I guess. He kind of gave them like, hey, this character's probably, I was going to have him do this and this person do that. Still, like, I don't know if after the show ends and then let's say he actually does finish the series, which is also a huge question mark. Like, will he actually finish them? But if he were, I don't know. I don't know if I would want to see what he did, especially if it was a lot different, or that's tough.
That is a tough question because it's like a whole completely different direction.
Right.
Like, you could essentially say, he's like, oh no, Stark died like, 3 years ago. Like, wait, what? Like something crazy like that.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe, but right now I think my answer would be no. I think I'm good. I think I like the show, and yeah, probably not.
Interesting. Yeah.
So anyway, that's, other than Cold War, that's really all I've been watching lately. How about you, Bobby? What'd you watch this week?
So it's funny. There's one movie in the theater that came out with called Serenity with Matthew McConaughey.
Right.
And it's funny because one of my friends at work, he had sent me a text earlier in the week, and he was like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna go watch Serenity this weekend." And he was like, and in his text, he was like, "It's back in theaters." And then I had to let him know that that's not quite the same movie that you're thinking of. And he was obviously thinking of Joss Whedon's Serenity, which was based the movie version, or that came after the series for Firefly when it went off the air. And he wasn't the only one who thought that, because I was reading Twitter and there was someone, I don't know who the person was, but in their Twitter feed, it said, "Please stop tweeting me about Firefly," or something. And apparently, I guess a lot of people must have been thinking the same thing in terms of the movie. But I did not go see that. I stayed home and I watched a couple of different documentaries about the same subject, which is the Fyre Festival. I don't know. Have you guys been hearing about that?
I want to watch those.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I want to watch that too.
So for anyone out there listening that doesn't know, the Fyre Festival was this big event that was supposed to be put on by this guy named Billy McFarland and Ja Rule, and it was supposed to take place somewhere in the Bahamas. They had apparently bought an island that was owned by Pablo Escobar, and they were going to make it into this big, huge concert event, sort of like Coachella. And it turns out the whole thing was a huge fraud, and there's like these different and varying aspects to the depths in which they went about essentially either fooling everyone or fooling themselves into thinking that they could pull this off. And the Netflix version is called Fyre: The Greatest Party That Never Happened. And that was the one I watched first. And I really liked that one, I think, a little bit more than the Hulu one, but I almost feel like it might depend on which one you watch first. But the Netflix one felt more like a story, because it builds up to the whole thing, and you get these different interspersed interviews and everything with some of the people involved. But the one that's on Netflix, the thing that you have to go into that one knowing is that it's produced by the people who were the marketing company for the Fyre Festival, and you can kind of tell, like, when they're being interviewed on film or for the documentary, that they're trying to distance themselves from the whole thing, whether they were culpable or not. They were just really trying to put themselves like, hey, we were duped just as much as everyone else. But then when you kind of watch the Hulu version, which is more independent, it's more just sort of a recollection of all the different things that tended to happen along the timeline. and you kind of get the sense that maybe the marketing guys who did the Netflix version knew more than what they were saying they did, because at some point you kind of have to see red flags, and you would want to kind of either stop what's going on out of the pull down with the whole thing. But it was all very interesting, and I would definitely suggest it for anyone who's interested, because it was fascinating just seeing this swirl of events happen, and the people involved and the people who bought into it. It was like I was fascinated and just watched both of them back to back, really, 2 nights in a row, and it was really good. So if you have Netflix, you can watch that one. If you have Hulu, you can watch that one, or you can watch them both, which is what I did. And I felt like they both together kind of complement each other and make a one really well sort of story and narrative from both sides of the equation.
Nice. Yeah, it wasn't honestly until you mentioned it to me, Bobby, that I realized there were 2. I only had known about the Netflix one. Like,
yeah.
And you mentioned the Hulu one, and I'm like, wait, what? And then
so
I've kind of heard about them both now since I discussed it with you. And I guess it's my understanding too that the Hulu one actually has interview footage with the guy. I don't know his name.
Yeah, Billy McFarland.
Right.
Yeah, it does. And it's funny just because Netflix had put it out there that they were doing this documentary, and then Hulu, I guess, was working on one as well. But since they knew Netflix's release date, they released it, I think, a day earlier or so before the Netflix one dropped. So it was kind of like, all right, well, I guess they were trying to take advantage of the little window of time that they had to sort of put theirs out there first. I'd be curious to know which one got more viewers, but yeah, the one I still, regardless of the fact of it showing up on Hulu first, I ended up watching the Netflix one first.
Gotcha. Anything else this week?
No, that's all I got a chance to watch. And, unfortunately, there's not much else in the theater. So, yeah, that was pretty much it.
Cool. Well, I guess with that, we can move on to kind of whatever news has been happening in the world of film, TV, pop culture. And I'll just turn it over to you, Bobby. What's been going on?
Well, not a whole lot. I mean, we just came off of a week, this past week, where the Oscar nominations were talked about and mentioned. And there's been a lot of coverage, so I won't bog everyone down with all of the different categories and subcategories. But I was really curious to just sort of kick it off to everyone for the Best Picture nomination category. And I'll read those off just so people can know what's in those categories and kind of gauge where I'm kind of headed with it. But the nominations for Best Picture are Black Panther, Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Green Book, Roma, A Star Is Born, and Vice. And so it's for a while now. I think it's, I won't guess at the years, but I know for a little while now, they've had it to where you can have up to 10 nominated movies in that category. But this year we got 8. And some people are upset that seems some things may have gotten left off the list that they thought could have made for it. And it does make sort of a strong argument for, if you can have 10, why not just do 10? Because I'm sure we could definitely probably sit here and name 2 other movies that could easily be in that category. But just based on the ones that we have, I'll start with you, David. What of those movies have you yet to see, or have you seen pretty much the majority of them?
I haven't seen Vice. I haven't seen Green Book. I haven't seen Bohemian Rhapsody. So yeah, I've seen the rest. And yeah, I will say, kind of you mentioning the 8 nominee thing, that was going to be one of my first things, because it's funny, since they've started this 10 nominee format where you can have up to 10 nominees, but you have to, what is it? Like, they have to reach a certain percentage of votes in order to get, and I forget what that percentage is. And in previous years, we've had other years where we didn't get 10, and I've been kind of mostly fine with it. This feels like the first year where I'm like, I feel like you really could have used all 10 here. Like,
yeah,
you know, and especially too, I feel like there's movies that are on here that I'm like, I mean, be it I haven't seen them, but I'm kind of surprised to see them here. Like Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, I understand it's a good film, but I also feel like from the general reaction I've heard about that movie, I'm kind of surprised to see it in this category. But I'm saying that having not seen it. So, and I do intend to see it. I do want to check it out.
Okay,
yes.
Yeah. You literally said it as I was asking it. Okay,
no,
cool.
Especially too with a lot of these movies coming back into theaters because they're Best Picture nominees. I will actually probably try to see it in the theater. Just for that kind of concert experience, you know, I think it'd be nice to see it in the theater. So I want to try to do that because it is available right now to purchase digitally. So, I mean, that's definitely an option, but, so yeah, I want to see that. Honestly, I doubt I'll bother seeing Vice. I might, I mean, but I kind of doubt it.
Really?
I don't know.
Why? Why is that?
I don't know. I just, for some reason, I've somewhat lost interest in it. Like, and I think that's also just based on kind of a lot of the reaction I've read about it. But at the same time, I also like to see movies like that to form my own opinion. But it won't be the first movie I reach out to see. I mean, I definitely would try to see Green Book and Bohemian Rhapsody, I think, first. And then I'll just say overall for the category, I mean, I don't know. This is one of those years where I feel like this category, I'm kind of left like, meh, like at first it bums me out that First Man is not even nominated. And, you know, we'll get to the other nominations too, but First Man overall for me just really shafted this year. Like it's got like a sound mixing, a sound editing, I think production design, and that's it. Like, and that really bums me out. But, yeah, I don't know. Overall, this category is kind of like, and then, I mean, I fully expected Black Panther to be nominated here, and I think that's great. Like, I want to be clear that I think it's great that it's getting this recognition, but at the same time, it's tough because it's like I don't even think it's the best comic book movie of the year, and part of me is like, is it even the second best comic book movie of the year? I don't know. Like, I know I might even put it at the 3 spot. So. You know,
we all know what the comic book movie of the year was for you, David. So let's just not even go there.
We all know
that it was.
You know,
we all know that it was Aquaman.
I was gonna say we all know what it was for all of us.
Right. But I don't know. This is one of those years where I look at this, especially the Best Picture category, and I'm just left going, I just don't even care about Best Picture this year. I'm kind of like, whatever.
Wow.
I don't.
Wow.
I feel like a lot of things got the shaft.
I say that I'm like, you know what? If it's not going to happen, but if like Black Klansman walked away with this, I would be thrilled.
Oh,
you know,
dude.
or
The Favorite.
The Favorite. I love The Favorite. If that walked away with it, I would be thrilled. I have to say, you know, you hear all this buzz about Roma getting the award, and you know, I've already said this. I guess I talked about it in the Top 10 show. It was like I was kind of about Roma. I mean, it looks gorgeous, and I think if anything, it definitely should earn a Best Cinematography award, but. Other than that, I don't know. I guess it just didn't speak to me. I don't know if I'm just missing something, and I love Alfonso Cuarón. Like he's a fantastic director, but that movie just did not do it for me. So it's tough. Like this is going to be a year where it seems like that's probably going to be the winner, and I'm left going, oh, okay. So that's where I am with Best Picture to answer your question, Bobby.
You know, I really hate the fact that I've been listening to and watching a lot of the critics talk about the nominations this year, and one of the things that they pointed out about the best movie category is how a lot of times it's synonymous with the best director category, and a lot of the people who are nominated for a lot of the movies that are nominated for Best Picture, their director isn't nominated, so they're like automatically Xing those out because of the amount of times that a movie's won Best Picture without having their director nominated. It's like, I don't know, 2 or 3 times within the last however many years. So it's like by those statistics, everyone's sort of picking Roma. But I really am hoping that with the influx of new Academy members we've had within the last couple years and the diversity and the people, that they're not going to just go by those like, oh, well, this movie didn't have their director nominated, so why should I pick that for Best Picture? I'm hoping that they kind of will like say what they really feel that they went to the movie theater and watched and had the best time seeing. And so that when we get to that part of the category, maybe we'll be surprised in some way or another. Going back to something that you mentioned as far as the Black Panther nomination, I would agree. I mean, in the sense that obviously it didn't make my top 10. So I absolutely had other movies that were in that genre ahead of it. But I will say the thing that I do like about it is that for the first time ever, we have a comic book movie in the Best Picture category. And so I hope that at least garners enough goodwill for future years that it will set the tone that, hey, you can do this because it's precedent now. And so even though I wouldn't have necessarily put Black Panther as the Best Picture nominated for the comic book movies that came out, it's better that it's in this Best Picture nomination category rather than Best Popular Movie category that they wanted to do. So that's kind of my take there. And I do have a quick bone to pick with you, actually, though, David.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So obviously we share, not specifically share, but we're on Twitter. And so I will see a lot of times when you like something.
Oh, yeah.
And so what is your beef with one of my top 10 movies of the year, Green Book?
Oh, I don't have a beef because I've never seen it.
I know, that's my point. But I'll see where you like things that are sort of saying disparaging things about Green Book.
Well,
and I'm like, wait.
to be clear, and this is going to be tough to explain on here to the audience because I don't have the tweets in front of me, but I feel like what you're referring to are tweets from someone in particular who definitely has a problem with this movie. And for example, when I like those tweets, I think I just get a kick out of his continued, like, just, I don't know how to put it, but how he definitely continues to share his opinion on Green Book online. And I find it amusing. I just do. And I'm saying that I have not seen the movie. I want to see it. Like I mentioned during the top 10 show, and I was pulling clips for it. I was like, man, these are good clips. I want to see this movie. And especially considering I've heard these kind of opinions, like from this person in particular who definitely has a problem with it. And he's saying that from a minority perspective, he has a problem with it. Now, you were obviously coming from that, a similar perspective, but you enjoyed it quite a bit. So now I'm definitely left going, man, I got to see this. Like, I want to see where I fall here. But no, I think maybe you misinterpret my likes of those tweets as like, yeah, I don't like that movie either. Like, no, it's more just me getting a kick out of this person's constant referencing of his displeasure with Green Book is more. And it's a couple people too. There's a couple other accounts I follow that also have similar opinions that I think occasionally I'm like, I just find it funny. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it does. And that's the perfectly legitimate response, because I was like, why is he like this? For the life of me, I could have sworn he hasn't seen it yet. So what does he have against this movie? And so that was, I guess, my overall takeaway from this particular category is I am interested just because it's nice to see some, like I said, the first comic book movie ever put into the category. And you also have Spike Lee being nominated for Black Klansman. So that's kind of a thing that you don't see. And there's many times I feel like he's had movies that could have been in that Best Picture category. And, the other ones I fairly liked other than Roma. And even with Roma, it wasn't that I didn't like it. It's just that I definitely didn't have the same amount of love for it that the critics seem to have for it.
I think you, David, and I fall in the same boat when it comes to Roma. Yeah. Like, I liked it, but I'm not as attached to it as apparently the rest of the critics are, or the Academy seems to be at this point. They're just, I don't know. I have to agree with David. Like, I'm really bummed that First Man didn't get anything. Like, I don't understand that. I'm very surprised. I don't get it.
So then, Michelle, and I get that too. What is your big takeaway from that Best Picture category?
I will say I'm happy to see the diversity as far as just storylines and the directors that did it, just the idea behind. I mean, like, if you think about it, like Black Panther, Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Green Book, Roma, A Star is Born, and Vice. These films are... the diversity that's happening here, I think, is great. So I think that's probably my biggest, like, wow, it's nice to see. It's not just, I don't know, just your traditional white man Hollywood kind of happening here. We're getting storylines that have, you know, more complex ideas and background storylines that aren't just, you know, traditional centric to what we've seen in the past. God, I don't even know. The last 30 years, I think, have been very like specific in a way. So it's nice to see that. And I say that, and I acknowledge that in the last few years, it's slowly been going back up to getting stories that come from around the globe and from people that have not a traditional, I guess, upbringing or, you know, storyline. And I like that. I like that there's this constant changing and constant modification. I think that it still could be more. I think we could see Best Pictures that have even more diverse casts, a more diverse storyline, diverse directors and writers and producers, and we're getting there, but it is a slow climb. And I don't really have any beef with anything that's on here. I'm a little surprised with Bohemian Rhapsody, and I say that because I feel like it's not critically well received, and I say that, and Rami Malek's portrayal of now my brain just
Freddie Mercury.
I almost said Eddie Mercury. I don't know why. And like I'm sitting here, I'm like, don't say that. But his portrayal of Freddie Mercury is mesmerizing, and it's just so spot on and on point that I think because of his performance, they might be giving this film a little more credit than what credit is due, I guess. So. And I say that, and I have nothing against the film. It's just more or less, I just didn't think that it was as Oscar worthy as I think it's getting the attention for. But at the same time, his nomination for a leading actor, extremely well deserved from everything I'm hearing. So I definitely don't begrudge that in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, it's fine. I think, like I said, I think I could have easily seen First Man on this, like easily seen First Man on this list. And even if it hadn't gotten, it would be fine. But it's like, wow, it's not even getting the recognition that I think that film deserves. Like, it's surprising to me, you know? Anyways, so yeah, that's about where I'm at.
Yeah, I really am curious as to what went on there with the whole First Man thing. Is it, I don't know who nominates or how they go about nominating, but it's just interesting because when it was, I'm not sure if it premiered at Sundance or TIFF or wherever it was at initially, but there seemed to be a decent amount of people coming out of it saying they could see it getting Oscar noms. And so for it to start off with the Golden Globes and not really get that much love, and then you're seeing in the Oscars as well, where was the disconnect with that movie? I'm very, very curious about it.
Yeah, I mean, part of me is like, I feel like it's a poor excuse, but I guess I find myself wondering, like, is it because it did play kind of earlier in the fall, like compared to a lot of like award kind of contenders too, where a lot of them end up coming out in the late November, December kind of window, since this release like in mid-October. But we've had movies that have released that early before, and they've been fine at the awards. So I don't know. I feel like that's a poor excuse. And I mean, to answer your question, it premiered at the Venice Film Festival in August.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of odd to me, but what do I know?
Well, that just leaves Yasha, since he hasn't really had his chance to speak upon what he thought of this Best Picture category. So I'm curious, Yasha, how do you feel about this category?
Well, like I've been listening to you guys talking, like everybody's kind of, verbalized what I've thought about some of these things as well. Like I'm looking at some of the nominations. I think, Roma is definitely, since that one's getting a hype or whatnot, the rumors that probably do that. Win. I don't think Black Klansman and Black Panther have a shot in hell against some of these other movies. I think, A Star Is Born was so critically acclaimed. I think that's a front runner as well. I don't think Vice is up there at all. I don't think The Favorite's up there either. And I have heard wonderful things about The Favorite. And I think Bohemian Rhapsody maybe, just because the music holds people into the movie and it's very almost like a sing-along. But I honestly think Roma or A Star Is Born are probably the front runners when it comes to this category. I would be beside myself if Black Klansman won or Black Panther. I would be really happy if either one of those won as well. Just because I think it'd be awesome for Black Panther to get an Oscar, with being a comic book movie. I don't think they're going to give it to Spike Lee. I think they're going to give it to Spike Lee on this movie. I just don't think that's in the stars. I like the diversity, and I like how the categories for this that are kind of all over the place when it comes to the stories, but I don't think they really have a chance in hell. I think it's mostly going to be Roma or A Star Is Born.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting just because it's I feel like I'm more on the side of the idea that, like Michelle said, there's definitely a lot in there, and there could still be more in terms of diversity and just mixing it up. But I like this mix regardless of, I guess, maybe not necessarily regardless of who wins, but I think that these movies being there, they represent a lot of different things. And I like the fact that a lot of these movies, practically all of the movies, I like to varying degrees. So it would give these movies more exposure, and hopefully more people will go out and see those movies. But I guess overall, did anyone else have any sort of takeaways maybe from some of the other categories that they wanted to talk about, whether it's any of the Oscar snubs or anything that really stood out to them that they liked? I'll start. There was one category that I felt as though one movie got completely overlooked, and I am very shocked and surprised by, and that's in the Best Documentary category. And they completely left out the Mr. Rogers movie, Won't You Be My Neighbor? And a lot of people are saying that because they were right there in terms of seeing that movie and predicting that it would win the category. And I saw it in the theater and thought for sure that it would get at least a nomination. Whether or not I felt as though it could win, I don't know. But to not get the nomination, I was completely stunned by that. But anybody else have anything else that they thought was curious or weird or great?
I thought I've got a few things. So in the short film animated, Disney, well, I should say Pixar's Bao is nominated, and it's the first female directed short nomination for animation. I guess I should let me write this down. So it's okay. Let me back up here. So it's Pixar's first female directed short film that is nominated, but then it goes into, it's actually one of the first short animated films directed by a female that's nominated. So it's like there's a lot of little caveats to it, which I think is awesome. And then and again here, diversity. This is a Asian Canadian director. She did this as a homage to her mother, and I think it's nice to kind of see that this is where it's going. And the sad thing is at this point in time, I have not seen the other animated short films, but I would like to do that soon. And then to kind of go back to what I was talking about earlier, cinematography nominees, Cold War was nominated with Lucas Zal, The Favorite with Robbie Ryan, Never Look Away with Caleb Deschanel, Roma, Alfonso Cuarón, and A Star Is Born, Matthew Labatique. I don't know who that is, actually. And I think these are all fabulous cinematographers, and I say that, and I've not known about the gentleman who did A Star Is Born, but I think this one is a tough one because the cinematography in The Favorite, I think, is really different and unique. They used some different lenses and different perspectives on a lot of shots, and I thought it was done really, really well. But I really think that at the end of the day, it's going to come down to Cold War and Roma, I think, are going to go head to head on this one, in my opinion. In my humble opinion.
So it's interesting with that one because I heard some people that were talking about that category, and they were talking about the idea that maybe it comes down to statistics and all that other stuff, but that the thought process going into it would be, let's say that most people are feeling that Roma is going to win for Best Picture, then maybe they give Cold War the Best Foreign Film movie,
right?
Instead of giving Roma both. So it's like, that seems so, I don't know, kind of disingenuous to me. Like, if you're saying, well, I voted for it in this category, so I can't vote for it again here. I really hope, it makes me think and not really understand how people go into their voting aspects for things, because if you liked it for Best Picture, you just would think automatically then it should also be voted for as Best Foreign Film. So but then you start playing those things in those games in your head, like maybe that's where the people will do things. Because when I mentioned the Won't You Be My Neighbor slight, they were I was listening to someone talk about that one of the people who was an Oscar voter, Questlove, he said that I think when they get this grouping of movies that they can choose from to essentially be one of the nominees, he said he saw Won't You Be My Neighbor on the list, but they put the movies in alphabetical order, and so it was way down there on the list, and he did see it, but he said that he felt like enough people were going to vote for that one, so he put his vote behind something else.
What?
And so
What?
so it's kind of
That
like,
is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
But what makes it interesting as a bad thing as well is that I'm sure he's not alone in thinking that if people are thinking, well, a lot of people are going to vote for this one, so let me go ahead and vote for this one so that can get some love as well, then it makes you feel like, how can you really put a lot of weight behind this when there's this much like I don't know. It just seems like if you're going in to vote, you should vote for what you feel, even if you think other people are voting for it. So that just would strengthen that movie's appeal. But it just seems like maybe not everyone has the same mindset going into the way they vote for things. And I'm sure that will bear out when we actually watch the awards too.
I think my only other thing I was just going to say is, for animated feature film, I feel it's obvious, in my opinion, for me, that I'm definitely rooting for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And I will say it getting the Golden Globe was a big woohoo. But, and then tonight is the SAG Awards. Not that has any bearing on that. I don't know why I brought that up. Anyways, so.
You never know.
There's no bearing on that.
It might, because it's the Screen Actors Guild, and so that's obviously the actors voting on these things, and so maybe these same people who are voting in the Screen Actors Guild categories, they're part of the Oscar voting body as well, so maybe the same things they pick there will be the same things they pick in the Oscar, so there could be some sort of crossover there.
Yeah, we'll see. But I'm definitely fingers crossed for Spider-Verse. And you know what? I'll be honest. I almost feel like, and I might be crazy, but I feel like Into the Spider-Verse could have possibly been nominated for a Best Picture. I'm not saying it has a shot in getting it, but I'm like, I could have seen that. I could have seen that this year. And because I feel like there's not there's only been a few animated films that have ever been up for it. And this is one that I can be like, I could have seen that happening. I'm a little sad it didn't, though.
True. David, you sound like you were about to say something.
Well, no, I was just going to jump in and say, for me, I mean, I've already mentioned First Man being snubbed, and that bums me out. That was one of my big takeaways. One of the first things I've noticed was, you've already brought up documentary feature. I was shocked to see that Won't You Be My Neighbor wasn't there, and I haven't seen it yet, but just, I mean, I've seen it on numerous top 10 lists, and I've heard so many wonderful things about it that it just felt like a lock. And to not even see it on the list, that kind of blew me away. Part of me was like, did I miss something? Is it not eligible for some reason? Like, I don't understand what's happening here. And then you hear what you just said about, you know, the voting, and that bums me out. I don't know. Other than that, I mean, I would say, like, I look at Best Director, and I mean, there's nobody on that list that I'm like, oh man, they shouldn't be there. I mean, I haven't seen Vice, so I can't speak for Adam McKay being in that spot. But other than that, I'm like, yeah, okay, I could see all these directors being here. But then I'm kind of surprised that Bradley Cooper didn't get a nomination for Stars Born. I think I just kind of expected that. So I'm somewhat surprised to see that he's not in that spot. But those are my big takeaways from the Oscars.
So what about you, Yasha? Do you have anything that in your mind is something that's egregious or something that was kind of cool?
No, but I signed with Michelle with the, you know, I could see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse being nominated as best film. I have high hopes that wins. I think that movie was just fantastic. And the only other movie on that list that I've seen is Incredibles 2 when it comes to the animated feature. Haven't seen Isle of Dogs yet, but I'm definitely intrigued, and I haven't seen, or I don't even know what that is. I don't think I've ever seen a trailer for that one. And Ralph Breaks the Internet I've seen, but not the sequel, I should say. But no, nothing that stands out where I'm just like completely floored or like against the idea of it being nominated, if that makes sense. It's just like, why is that there?
Yeah.
And that when I read over the list, I'm just kind of like, yeah, all right, I can see that. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I will say then, the whole. Go ahead.
Let me just say, like, I guess most of my surprises, when it comes to the reactions that I had, have all been pleasant surprises as opposed to upset. Does that make sense? Like, you know, like the movie that David's, you know, First Man, like, you know, you feel like that was snubbed, but I haven't seen that, so I honestly wouldn't be able to interject my opinion when it comes to whether or not it should be or shouldn't be. So it's like it's all right now. It's all just been pleasant surprises.
That's good. I mean, so I guess my thing that I was going to say, just to kind of put a bow on it, is that it seems to me that this year there does seem to be a lot more inclusion and some things getting nominated, and of course there's more to go, but overall I would say I'm pretty satisfied with the majority of things that are there, and don't really feel like too many of the snubs are just outright terrible miscalculations, other than that Won't You Be My Neighbor. But one of the interesting things to come out of it was the fact that Roma, being a Netflix film, got so many different categories that it was nominated in, and one of the other movies, the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, got a few nominations as well. And so that was interesting that Netflix kind of came away with a lot of different nominations this year, and so it'll be interesting to see whether that plays into any part of the voting as well, in terms of, are people anti-Netflix in the sense that they still want to cherish the movie-going experience, even though Roma did play in the theaters for a limited time, but are they sort of these people who are willing to work within Netflix and with Netflix to try and see something like that and open those floodgates even more? So I am curious from that perspective as well. And I think one of the other things that I thought was interesting is that the Oscars itself, they said essentially, without saying, they haven't made it official, but it seems as though we won't be getting a host this year. And they made an additional change into where only two of the best songs that are nominated are actually going to be performed. Best original song that's going to be performed at the Oscars, which is All the Stars from Black Panther, and then Shallow from A Star Is Born. So I guess that's one of their first big attempts at trying to cut down the length of the Oscars this year. So we'll see if that helps.
That is so crazy to me.
What part's crazy to you, Michelle?
Like them chopping down the original songs. Like, wow. And I'll be honest, I'm a little bummed too, because like the Mary Poppins song that's nominated is actually one of the songs that I really liked for that movie. It's one of the few I actually enjoyed for that film, and would have loved to have heard that performed. Oh, dude. And I like that song from Buster Scruggs.
Heard that news, Michelle?
I liked that song from Buster Scruggs too. Dang.
No, I hadn't heard that either about the song.
Heard that news about? Oh, really?
No.
Okay. So then, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
It's surprising. I mean, I guess I'm not as shocked maybe as you are, Michelle, but it is kind of a bummer. Like, it seems. So what made them choose these two songs? Was it a matter of working it out with performers to do the others, and it just didn't work out? So they're like, okay, well, I guess we're just performing two. But that doesn't seem plausible to me. Like, I'm sure you ask somebody to, hey, can you come perform at the Oscars? Anyone's going to jump to that, like, unless it's just a scheduling conflict. But I don't know. It does seem weird. I mean, in terms of like just trying to cut down the length of the Oscars, I don't know. I guess I'm just not one of those people that complains about the length of the Oscars, so I guess I'm not the one to ask. But to me, it's just like going to Oscar night knowing it's going to be long. Like,
I'm up till midnight. I know that.
That's part of the Oscars to me. Like, this whole complaint, oh, it's so late. And I'm saying this, I live on the East Coast and it's Sunday night. And sure, in a perfect world, this would be Saturday night. And part of me doesn't understand why in the hell it is Sunday night. For the life of me, I don't get it, But whatever, fine. It's the Oscars. It's just one of those nights where I'm like, hey, you know what? I watch it. But I guess, you're trying to get the casual viewer, and a lot of people aren't like me or us where we just watch it no matter what. A lot of people are just like, you go to work and your coworkers, it's those people that are like, oh man, I'd watch it, but I gave up halfway through. It's just too long. So I guess I get it. But I don't know. I mean, I will say the lack of host thing I have mixed feelings on too. It's like, part of me is like, it's totally doable. A lot of times the host feels like, why are you even there?
Right.
in a lot of ways lately anyway. Yeah. There was definitely a period of time of the Oscars where I felt like it was a golden era of hosts. And I feel like lately,
like the Billy Crystal,
yeah, exactly.
and the Whoopi, and who else used to do it? Steve Martin and
Steve Martin did it several times.
I feel like that was definitely an era that I'm glad that I lived through that, because that was a lovely era of hosts that we had for a long time.
And there's definitely been a lot of opening kind of monologue pieces lately that I've been like, we could do without this. Like, and I say that,
that's not good.
I love a good movie montage, that's great.
I do. And that was what was fun about those old ones. Because it was always, those were good.
But I don't know. So part of me is like, you know what? I'm kind of okay without having a host. I'll just be kind of curious to see how they handle it. Since they haven't done it before. That's my concern. Like, is the opening of the show just going to feel really weird? But I don't see a reason for it to be weird. I feel like this show could definitely happen where we don't have a host and almost people don't even notice. Like,
they could just get any comic or anyone really to do a very short monologue in the beginning of it. But host isn't throughout the show. I don't think is necessary. Yeah,
and we've definitely had shows where we've had like an opening number where you just have a ton of different celebrities partaking in it, and we could have that again here and
totally do that.
We just don't have a single person who is the host.
Right. Yeah. I'm kind of okay with it.
Mm-hmm. With that said, I think Kevin Hart would have been great. I
agree.
Yeah, especially since he wanted to do it. I really was curious to see what he would have came up with. And, everyone's going to critique it to hell the next day, and that night. But nevertheless, I still was curious to see what he would have done.
Right.
But it will be honestly very, yeah, it doesn't matter who you are, but it'll be very interesting to see what they do next year, just because they're going to have to go through it again, in the sense that whoever they vet, they better do a really damn good job of it, because people are going to be waiting and jumping at the bit to sort of tear those people apart in the way that they start digging and trying to find stuff, if it's someone that they don't approve of as the host.
Right.
Well, I guess that's all of the Oscar stuff there is. I don't have anything else unless you do, David.
No, I was going to say I guess we're pretty much running out of time, but if you had any last bits, but I guess not. So no, I don't really have anything else. I mean, we just saw Aquaman pass. What was it? Was it The Dark Knight Rises, or was it The Dark Knight?
Yeah.
No, I think it was The Dark Knight.
I think it was Dark Knight.
Dark Knight. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was The Dark.
Past The Dark Knight to become the.
I love your comment, David. You're just like, you don't want to live in this world anymore.
Yeah, no, I'd sent a message to all you guys about the fact that it surpassed The Dark Knight to become the most profitable DC movie ever. And yeah, I mean, again, I know we've talked about its death. I get it. I know I'm not a fan of Aquaman, and to me that's just depressing news. It is, especially to surpass a movie like The Dark Knight, which is to me the polar opposite of quality when it comes to comic book films. It hurts. And I'm saying it too, like, I'm not saying I hated the movie. The movie's fine, but it's definitely not what I wanted. And then for this kind of stuff is what bugs me most about it, is because to me it just means more of this. And when it makes that much money, it's just, we're going to see more of this, and it's so not what I want. So anyway.
So the Oscars, Sunday, February 24th.
Yes. So yeah, with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. As always, we'd love to hear back from everyone listening. You can email us at feedback@flickereffect.com with your questions or comments. You can also reach out to us on Twitter or Instagram at @flicker_effect. And by the way, these shows are also available in their audio form over on YouTube. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/flicker effect. So just check us out over there if you like. With that, I'm David Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
I'm Yasha Wilson.
And I'm Michelle Hillard.
Thanks for listening.